Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Wixo Season 2. We are now on episode 14 of the series, and in the last episode we saw many conflicts all throughout the world. We saw some in America, some in Europe, and even some in Asia. Overall it was a pretty eventful last episode, so if you haven't seen it, do be sure to go ahead and watch it. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into this episode. So jumping straight into it, the first thing we are going to be taking a look at is going to be over here in Europe. And that is because we are going to be seeing a new country actually go ahead and form in Scandinavia. So recently Belgium has been invading some of these lands, and the tribes have been getting a little bit damaged by this, so they have decided to come together to form a proper society to hopefully be able to defend themselves. And that is going to be over here in southern Sweden. As we see this light blue slash kind of teal Swedish country go ahead and form, and these guys are relatively weak at the start. They essentially base their whole country around these two cities. These are like big tribal towns that are kind of like their strongholds, I guess, where most of their population lives, and they are going to be designating this city over here to be their capital. These guys actually have some like naval technology, which allows them to go out and conquer the tribes on this island, so they were forming up to protect tribes, and now they just invaded some, so, that's interesting. But overall, Belgium is really not too bothered about this, because right now they are literally just focused on taking over the rest of the sea areas to control. So they're going to head and move up to the Oslo area, and they're going to conquer this southern Norwegian area with ease, and after this they're going to be taking over the rest of the coast, after which they begin to settle a lot more of southern Sweden, as this is kind of the most livable area, and they actually go ahead and meet up in terms of bordering the Swedish country, and this makes them a little bit worried. But sticking on course with colonialism and Belgium, we're going to be seeing a little bit of a conflict take place in the British Isles. So a couple episodes ago, Belgium and Brittany divided Sweden up pretty peacefully. Now, while it was kind of peaceful at the time, recently there has been a big push in Belgium to take this area over, as it has recently been discovered there are lots of bronze mineral deposits, of which Belgium makes a lot of their coins out of, and this would be a pretty nice help to their economy, and overall they think they can just take Brittany. There's like, oh, well, we're way stronger than them, what's the point of not doing it? So, we have Belgium launching an invasion into the Britannian colony. Overall it goes pretty well. And the reason it goes so well is because while Brittany is pretty good at like fighting on land, like their troops are like quite brutish, they essentially just take the land over quickly and form a naval blockade, so Brittany can't really do anything. And unfortunately for Brittany, while it may be able to hold its own against Normandy, Belgium is, well, they're a little bit trickier to fight because obviously they don't border each other. So overall, this is going to be a complete win for Belgium, and Brittany is going to go ahead and lose their Scottish colony. Down in the south, we have Normandy continuing to gain some of this central French land, and they just expand down here pretty nicely. And we also have the southern French country do some of the same. Continuing on with expansions, we have Italy taking over the final remaining areas of the Po Valley, which they probably would have taken over earlier, so that I guess is my bad. And we also have them conquering a little bit more into the Balkans. However, there are quite a few tribes that do make it a little bit tricky to invade into this kind of Croatian areas. Over in Spain, we have them continue to expand. I will just fix this border really quickly. But they continue to expand, and they kind of just move up around in this area. And as you just saw, the yellow country went over and took this coastal area, and Spain is not too happy about this because Spain actually really wanted this land. So this country that just got bullied by Galicia in a recent episode is going to get bullied once again, as we have Spain launching an invasion in and actually fully killing off this country. So rest in peace there, but Spain now has its coastal access, and they also conquer the rest of this central area, and also a little bit more in the south. To combat this, we have some of the other Spanish countries also move into more central Spain a little bit as well. But overall, Spain itself really has a monopoly over the Iberian Peninsula. Down into the Arabian Peninsula, we have Qatar/OG Iraq expand up the coast, actually forming a border with the Azerbaijan puppet state, which, well, I mean, I wouldn't if I were you, but I mean, go ahead. But these guys have kind of been restructuring recently, and they actually have a monarch who is very interested in retaking the glory that this country once had, so we'll have to see if this gets them anywhere. Next up, over in India, we have the new Indian Union sort of country continue to go ahead and expand, and they just take some chunks out of this area in the north. And finally, this is a fairly large event. We have the final warlords that they still have the parts of the Shanghai army, by the way, so Shanghai should be a bit worried about that. But we have the final warlords that are still fighting, officially defeat the Greensleeves, and now the warlords that are still fighting, well, were still fighting, don't have anything else to do, and they have a lot of troops, and they all hate each other. Maybe that could lead to something, but we'll check in on them later. Because now we need to move over to the Americas because some interesting stuff is happening here that is going to be leading to a bit of a chain of events. So, in the previous episode, Mississippi tried to invade the Mexican countries and got slammed. These guys have been falling behind in terms of scientific, technological, and military advancement due to them being complete fundamentalist religious peoples. That's more so their leadership. Some of the people in this country are getting concerned, as I have mentioned, and we will see the people being concerned highlighted. And why will it be highlighted? Well, because Mississippi has just got itself into another war, and once again it is with the Mexican countries. This time it is over a few troops of Mississippi who are very racist and don't like the Mexicans very much, basically going over to this Mexican city completely. Well, this was unprompted from the Mississippian oligarchy slash kind of, it's a theocracy, but it's run by oligarchs. It was unprompted from them. The troops go in and raid it, and these guys get so pissed that they're like, okay, well, we've rallied all the Mexican countries to fight Mississippi before, I think we can do it again. So they send out a letter to every Mexican country, not these guys, but the pink team, the purple team, and the green team. And all of these guys really don't like Mississippi, and seeing another chance to, they really did well in that previous war, and this time they're actually stronger than they were before, because not only do they have more land, they've also, developed more, and they have another country. So all four of these guys are going to be ganging up on Mississippi for a second time. We have the Brown country launch an invasion over in the coast, and I'm not going to lie, this war is going to be a lot quicker than the previous one, because in the previous one, it was kind of Mississippi catching these guys off guard, and they were a bit weaker than before. But now the situation is kind of opposite, as we have all three of the bordering countries as well as the green team in all three of these armies quickly moving in, and a huge moment for the pink country. We have them actually encircling and capturing their old capital city, which is huge for them. And this is a huge morale boost for these guys, and it actually causes a wave of people who become very patriotic to join the army, and this helps them flood up in north into the peninsula. The city down here is captured, and the administrative capital of the puppet state in the peninsula is sieged and taken, and at this point everyone in Mississippi is freaking out, because this, according to them, should not be possible. They believe that they are the divine righteous people, and these guys are just like idiot savages that shouldn't be able to beat them, but they are really getting thrown around by these guys, and once again, like I have said, the people getting concerned about this. Eventually, Mississippi does somewhat manage to slow it down. However, it's really not too effective, because the sheer amount of Mexican troops just flooding into these front lines due to having severe patriotism, it's really helping the Mexican countries. And eventually, the way that Mississippi solves this is just flooding the front lines with a bunch of troops that are people that are just doing regular jobs, just sending them to the front lines. This is actually really bad, as it causes a lot of hurt to several industries that these people were in. Farming takes a big hit, a bunch of farmers were sent to the front lines. And also, it continues to turn the people against this war, as, they're more struggling now. And eventually, after the front lines begin to slow, we have a second stalemate happen. Obviously, that first war sort of ended in a stalemate, but this war also ends in a stalemate, as the Mexican countries struggle to continue advancing, and we essentially just have kind of, a stalemate. And the countries eventually sit down to peace talks, even though Mississippi really does not want to. They kind of understand that they can't really do much. So we essentially just have these guys being able to take chunks out of this country. So let's go ahead and take a look at this peace treaty here. And this is what we go ahead and see for our peace treaty. So I just drew in the borders that I'm going to fill in. So, first things first, the most major thing, the Yucatan Peninsula puppet state is now gone. it was divided up, and the remainder of it was kind of just too weak to actually be its own state, so it just gets incorporated into Mississippi proper, and that is this northern area. And then the rest of this sort of follows the warfront line. So we have, and I can officially call these guys Belize again because they actually have it now. We have Belize finally getting their homeland back. This is a huge win for them, and like I said, during the war, also a very big morale boost for this country. The people celebrate this, and it actually becomes a national holiday. The purple country only gains a small area in the south, and because first of all, this city is like the only kind of valuable area in the occupation zone they got, and two, if I drew them well with the occupation zone they got, that would have looked horrendous. And finally, brown Mexico, which is well, these guys are the closest thing to a continuation of the original big Mexican country that used to like be united in all of this area. These guys get this whole area back, and this is also a big win, as I believe this is well, they only just got this area, and this was where the original capital of the OG United Mexico was, so that is also a huge win for them. So overall, the Mexican countries are very happy about this. But you know who's not happy about this? The people in Mississippi, and like I was just mentioning a minute ago, people are unhappy. People were unhappy before the war, and this is a real breaking point for a lot of people. Many people are like, okay, we're really falling behind. Maybe just delving into our theocracy and religion is bad. Like maybe things in our religious scriptures are wrong, and maybe, you know, science is right. But these people are just called heretics, and they are essentially exiled out of the country, and this eventually becomes such a big movement that about 20 to 30,000 people are exiled out of the country, and these guys just say, okay, screw it, we're going to go form our own country, we're going to migrate elsewhere and find a new place to live. They don't really feel like living in Mexico because, you know, despite the fact that they're not like too into this, there's still that religion, and everyone in this religion hates these guys, like they've been indoctrinated. So they're just like, okay, travelers have told us that there is like fertile lands coming from the west, so let's just travel there. So I'm just going to pop the terrain layer on for this one just so we can kind of see their journeys. We have them traveling through this sort of area, and they eventually find some of the lower areas through the mountains over here, and they keep on migrating, and eventually, of course, due to the direction that they're traveling, eventually we have them reaching the coast, moving up north, and discovering California. And this is really great for them, as this is a pretty habitable area. I mean, it is hot, but it is a pretty habitable area. And eventually, after exploring around this whole area, we eventually have these guys settling this region as a United States. As we see this darkish blue California country go ahead and pop up. And while these guys do remain united for now, well, there are a few issues, mainly caused, and I think I have said things like this with previous countries, united movement only working because the people have a united goal. However, once that goal has come to fruition, the divides between the people really become shown, so we'll have to see how long this country is able to kind of keep a hold of itself, but for now it just forms and is doing pretty alright for itself. Anyway, moving away from the Americas and actually moving on to another pretty large war, we have to move over to the Middle East. In the last episode over here, there was a pretty big war between Moldova and the members of the Triangle Alliance. And of course, Moldova ended up winning that war and the Triangle Alliance was severely weakened. However, despite what you may be thinking, Moldova is really not done with this area. They still have many ambitions over this region. And they have just finished their recovery process from that war. And, you know, any normal country would probably be like, oh, whatever, we kind of gained some land. We'll leave these guys alone now. Moldova is not a normal country. Moldova wants war. Moldova is interested in fighting another war down here, and the Senate and the three chancellors vote on this, and they all agree to go to another war with the Triangle Alliance. However, unlike the previous one, this one is a little bit different, and a bit of a spoiler, it's going to be a little bit more tricky for Moldova. And that is because some other countries are going to take wind and kind of see what's going on over here, and it may be a little bit of a disturbance for Moldova. But anyway, we have this war start with a surprise invasion by Moldova and Trebizond of Lebanon. The capital of Lebanon gets blasted immediately. In the previous war between these two sides, they kind of held out in a siege for a while, but due to it being a surprise invasion and these guys being substantially stronger now, it just gets toppled. We have also Trebizond moving in, and we also have Trebizond quickly making advances into northern Azerbaijan. Over in the south, we have the Palestinian colony of Moldova quickly meeting up and immediately sieging the coast, and at this point, the three consuls and Moldova as a whole really are really looking at this war like, wow, okay, this is going amazingly. And they are very confident about this war. However, then a little bit of a blunder is made. And that is, Trebizond decides to invade Turkey. They look at this war and they have Moldovan support and they're like, screw it, we may as well just take them over now. This can be our final war and we can, kill two birds with one stone. But this is what causes a few issues. Because up until this point, it was just kind of a two-side war, two sides that, maybe some other outside countries won't really want to support each side. But Trebizond doing this really awakens a lot of surrounding countries to, wow, okay, so this wasn't really like just a regular war between these two guys. This was very much a war of expansion on part of Moldova and Trebizond. They didn't even just try and fight this war. Trebizond immediately just went in to try and conquer as much land as they can in this war. We are very scared about the future of our nation, and because of this, this is actually able to, and with a little bit of Azerbaijani kind of persuasion, it actually emphasizes a few countries to join in on this war. And these countries are going to be as follows. The first one might be a surprise to you. It's actually going to be Egypt. The reason Egypt joins, despite actually fighting against the Triangle Alliance in the last war, is because they kind of see their land as very valuable, and they know that if there's an expansionist power right near them, and these guys are war hungry, and there's no wars for them to fight, they're probably going to go for them, and they now have a border with this country, so they're like, okay, we will join you guys up this time. We maybe shouldn't have done what we did last time, but now we're ready, I guess. And the second one is probably not a shocker. It's actually going to be Greece. And Greece is joining because they see this kind of growing movement against Moldova here, and they're like, okay, yes, we're joining in on this one. Maybe this is a chance to get our old land back. So just like that, this war has gone from just like a small regional one that Moldova could probably do pretty well in, to a pretty large war that will be a lot more tricky to fight. But anyway, while Egypt gets their armies readied up, Greece begins. Greece was like already, well, Greece is Greece. We know how Greece is like. They were previously a huge colonial empire, but they have been relegated very hard recently, and they have recently done a whole lot of military development, and they can now put that to great use as they begin to move into these areas. And these areas have only been under Moldovan control for about 80 years. So, I mean, while it has been sort of assimilated into Moldova, there are still a lot of people who are like old, who are the children of people when this was Greek, or are the grandchildren who are still kind of have that Greek identity, and that really comes along with religion. But yeah, we have Greece moving in, and Moldova's like, oh, whoops. Yeah, nice one, Trebizond. I mean, well, we don't care because like we like you, but still. But anyway, while we do have some more advancement in the south, reorganization causes some issues. First of all, it actually allows the Azerbaijani and Lebanese armies to make some pushes in the south, and in the north, Azerbaijan actually catches Trebizond off guard and pulls off a major encirclement, capturing about 10,000 Trebizond troops, and after this we actually have an Azerbaijan advance take place in the north. In the south, we actually do have Moldova make the first move, cutting off the Sinai Peninsula from this area and allowing a bit of a push in, all the way up to this city where they begin a siege, as well as this sort of like, well, once again, river, but I don't know if this is just the map showcasing the Suez Canal. Anyway, up in the north, Azerbaijan scarily continues moving on. Azerbaijan, they have a lot of people. They're comparable to Moldova in terms of population, so they can just conscript the masses, and the masses are conscripted willingly, as they remember that previous war, and they're like, okay, well, this isn't amazing. And Trebizond's capital begins to get, like, blasted from outside and gets put into a lengthy siege. In the south, well, unfortunately for Lebanon, they kind of get cooked here, and they actually get forced into Azerbaijani occupation, so that's not amazing for them. Their armies kind of just get, like, yeah, well, their country just collapses, and the army kind of merges with Azerbaijan. But we have our first Egyptian counter-offensives take place as they begin to push Moldovan forces back and reconnect with this area, although a lot of this area had already been defeated. Now, despite the fact that Moldova is fighting a three-front war here, one thing you've got to remember is Moldova is the strongest country in the world as of this point. So they begin to be able to combat Greece, and actually very quickly push them back to the border, and begin conquering in. At this point, Greece is getting a little bit concerned, but they still hold out hope, and they continue to just conscript as many people as they can. Over in the south, we have Egypt making another pushback, and in Lebanon, more pushbacks are completed as well. However, up in the north, Azerbaijan is still continuing into Trebizond, and they actually managed to take a hold of Trebizond's capital city, and this really worries Moldova, and they just completely ransacked this city. Pretty much all of the government officials in here were killed, and this actually really heavily destabilizes Trebizond. And after this, Azerbaijan just launches a rapid kind of like living off the land invasion in. Essentially, they just send their troops in to cause as much chaos as possible, and this is a really kind of scummy strategy, but it really works in causing a huge amount of damage to Trebizond infrastructure, and the damage is worth, well, in terms of like modern day money, billions in damages are caused here, and it really destabilizes the Trebizond structure of government, and it actually caused a lot of like disorganization in the army. So much, in fact, that, well, despite the fact that Azerbaijan doesn't really have the advantage in some of these areas, they begin to really slap these forces around and even cause some worries for Moldova in the north of their Lebanese front lines. At this point, Moldova is getting very worried about Trebizond, who, well, their structure of government is really collapsing at this point. It's really getting bad. Like, the things Azerbaijan is doing here are, well, war crimes in the modern day, definitely. And eventually it gets so bad that, well, Moldova kind of has to pull what Azerbaijan did in Lebanon and actually move in to occupy this land. And they begin to push back the front lines, and they find the cities completely ravaged, like massive amount of slaves has been taken, and overall Trebizond loses about 25% of its population, which is really damning. Over in Egypt, with so much like chaos going on up here, we actually do see Egypt make a bit of a pushback against Moldova, almost severing their armies in two. However, a bit of a pick-me-up is taking place for Moldova. In the Greek front lines, they have managed to do considerably well, and they are now at the gates of the capital of Greece. They also use their navy to land on this southern island and take these islands over here. And eventually, Greece may have begun to rethink joining this war, let's just say that. Back over in Azerbaijan, the Lebanese front lines continue to go back and forth, and the Egyptian front lines are going now in the favour of Moldova. However, another country is about to join, which is, well, it's not going to be too much of a deal breaker, but it is definitely going to cause a bit of a distraction for one side, and that is original Iraq / modern Qatar. They joined the war because they have ambitions over Mesopotamia. This area used to be their homeland, and seeing the fact that they're entangled in a war, as well as how I mentioned previously, these guys have like a leader who wants to restore their glory, they decide to join the war in a surprise invasion and quickly move in around the coast and even siege this city, which was their once capital. This causes a little bit of a distraction, and many of the kind of like barbaric troops in Trebizond are sent to the front lines over there, causing a huge win and morale boost for Moldova. I think it's also important to note at this point Moldova has conscripted like a really huge amount of men, like seeing how much damage Azerbaijan caused in Trebizond. By the way, I do want to emphasize that Trebizond is like really, really damaged from this war. We do have Moldova continuing to push in, and at this point, Egypt is kind of being starved. Moldova, using their supremely more advanced navy than Egypt, cuts them off from the coast, and the only areas they're really able to trade through are kind of like the Red Sea, but they can't really use their navy or any ships to go trade with like Arabia or India, because they're using it to fight off any potential Moldovan naval invasions, so they're really stuck in a bad situation right now, and eventually Moldovan troops just rampage through and actually capture the capital city of Egypt, and after this happens, Egypt goes ahead and surrenders, which is a huge win for Moldova, and it really causes a lot of stress on the part of Azerbaijan, who, to combat this, they come up with the only strategy they can, literally conscript everyone. If Moldova's going to have a lot of forces, then we are as well. They just basically just send slaves to the front lines. They're like, okay, slaves, you're gonna just like run at the Moldovan troops, and if you don't run at them and just like hit them or whatever, we're just gonna stab you. So it's pretty gruesome, but it actually is very effective in slowing down the Moldovan advances. And after reaching the rest of the coast of Trebizond, their advance really begins to slow down. It's also important to mention that this war has been going on for over 5 years now. However, a big win, Greece finally falls, so that is pretty nice for them, and let's just say it's not going to be so pretty for them after this war. We also have in the south, Azerbaijan is able to push back and eventually stalemate Qatar, who this war isn't like ridiculously popular in the country, especially with the fact that they haven't really made any major gains. They kind of just peace out, and we see a somewhat similar thing happen in the north as after we have the front lines begin to get completely stalemated. Moldova believes that they have achieved their goals, and they kind of want to talk peace with Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is not looking for peace. However, after we have some riots break out, after, well, people start starving because they can't really trade with, like, any countries over here, because it's just all Moldova right now, uh, Azerbaijan's leadership, they act like, oh yeah, we're going to do a peace treaty just because we're being nice to you, and they actually manage to hide the fact that they probably wouldn't be able to keep going with a war, so that's lucky for them. But we can now go ahead and take a look at this peace treaty, which is going to be a huge benefit for Moldova. And it's very surprisingly actually going to be reshaping Turkey a lot more than you may think. So let's go ahead and take a look at this peace treaty. So yeah, this is the peace treaty, and you might be very, very shocked by the very much change in Moldova. Now, the reason they do this is because Moldova's, well, their way of looking at things is no pain, no gain. If we don't, like, struggle by having like 1,000 rebellions because we gain too much land, then we're not going to get big anyway. We're Moldova, we deserve to own the whole world. So, with that kind of way of thinking, they just go all in. I mean, while it does look quite extreme, they really don't gain too much. They gain, well, taking apart puppet states, they only gain about well, they only gain like this sort of area, as well as parts of northern Greece. So it's really not too major, but the way that they really expand is with puppet states. So Trebizond actually got hit so badly that Moldova is kind of just like, maybe we should just be the ones to control you now. So after a little bit of weird government overthrowing stuff, we have a puppet be installed into the Trebizond seat in power, and the capital is actually moved because of how like ravaged Azerbaijan, how ravaged Azerbaijan made the capital city. And this is another reason, like, Trebizond was in such a bad state after that war, like, Azerbaijan had just ransacked it, that it would have probably been, like, very, very tricky for it to rebuild itself without having, like, a bunch of rebellions. So Moldova just decided, yeah, we'll come in and sort it out. Like, I mean, we're definitely the authority figure here. It's not like we're just some other country. But yeah, they take over the rest of Lebanon. Azerbaijan actually does gain some land in some areas, as at the end of the war they still had some occupied land, and they kind of just agreed to a ceasefire. But it's kind of just a border refinement over here. But they do lose land in the south to Qatar in their puppet states. Egypt is now a puppet, and they lose this land over here. All of the puppets have new governments. Maybe not Trebizond, but, because Trebizond was already sort of pro-Moldova. But the southern areas of Greece, including the former capital, are incorporated into the Cretan puppet state, and obviously the north of Greece is included into Moldova. And I actually think that is it for the peace treaty. So this is a really, really huge war for Moldova, and the people are very happy about this. But we will have to see if gaining so much land in a short amount of time causes any issues down the line in a later episode. And we are going to be taking a look at one final thing this episode before we end it off, because this one is getting very long, actually. And that is going to be a tiny bit of exploration and then some actual events. So, we have a lot more of Manchuria be discovered, as well as some of the steppes of Mongolia. Overall, just a lot more exploration. And we also have the rest of the sub-Himalayas area be discovered as well. But now, the main final event. Over in Shanghai, with the warlords now no longer fighting the Green Sleeves, they have a lot of popularity, and they have the armies that they never gave back to centralize Shanghai, as the armies stayed loyal to the warlords. We have, after a huge drought causing a lot of dismay and disorganization in Shanghai, many of these warlords taking the chance to break away, as they are planning to form either their own countries or take over the Shanghai government as a whole. As we have several groups going ahead and breaking out, we have this light greenish one in the north go ahead and break away from central Shanghai. We have this purple sort of one in the Shandong Peninsula, and these are all individual warlords, of course. We have this lightish green one go ahead and take place over here in the very far western areas. And in the south, this is actually quite interesting. The warlord here was rather weak, but he may have gained some support from a certain country that is a little bit concerned about Shanghai, so that's why these guys broke away. But yeah, we have this group break away in the south. And finally, we have this lightish pink one go ahead and break away very close to the center of Shanghai. But that is actually going to be it for this episode. We will be covering this war in the next one. I really hope you guys did enjoy this episode, and I will see you in the next one.